We will talk about the SQL data definition language in this lab. We use the SQL DDL for creating a database, tables, and other database objects. To do this lab on the class server, we need to create our own database and work on the lab in our own database. We use the SQL DDL create database to create our own database. Give the database a unique name. Once we have created our own database, go to it. We use the SQL use command. To create a table, we use create table. Give the table a name. We can also create our own schema. A table has columns. We put the column definitions in a pair of parentheses. A column has a data type. In this example, we are creating an order ID column, and its data type is integer. We use the identity property with it to make this column a surrogate key column. We say it's a primary key column. To set up a foreign key, we use the keyword references and we specify the parent table and the column in the parent table we are referencing to. Usually, that's the primary key of the parent table. To set up a composite primary key, we use this syntax. Constraint, give the composite primary key a name, and we say primary key clustered means the indexing type. We can leave it out. Lastly, we put the columns of the composite primary key in a pair of parentheses. To put data in our tables, we use the insert command. If we have several records to insert at the same time, we can put the sets of values in the values clause. The sets are separated by a comma. Once a table has been created, we can alter it or modify it. In this example, we change the column type of PK3. This column is in the table TBL3. We make this column PK3 a mandatory column or not null. This is how we set up a primary key after a table has been created. And this is how we set up a foreign key after a table has been created. We use drop table to drop a table. When we do SQL programming, we use two types of variables. Local variables start with 1 @ sign. Global variables start with to its signs. Developers use local variables. SQL Server maintains a lot of global variables. Developers do not need to maintain global variables, but they can use global variables when they do SQL programming. Here is a very simple example of a while loop. When we create a while loop, make sure we have the logic to determine how many iterations the while loop will run. In this example, at the beginning of the while loop, we check the value of the counter variable. And in the body of the while loop, we adjust the value of the counter variable for each and every iteration. When we use variables, we need to consider the scope of variables. We want to make sure when variables are declared and initialized, when we need to use them, they are still in the computer memory and ready for use. Therefore, we need to run the statements related to variables in the same group of SQL statements. In other words, in the same batch. In this example, all of the code highlighted in yellow must be run together in a batch. This is a more complex while loop. We can use this while loop to quickly populate our table. SQL views are widely used. They are very useful and flexible. We use create view to create a view. A view consists of a query, and the query follows AS. Once a view is created, we use it like a table. If a view is not encrypted, we can use the system stored procedure sp_help text to get the query we use to define the view. We use drop view to drop a view. When we define a view, we have two options. We can use with encryption. Also, we can use schema binding. With encryption, we'll protect our source code. With schema binding, we say if a view is based on many tables, then if we want to change any of the underlying tables, we must drop the view first. This is just to protect the dependability or reliability of our view. Once a view has been created, we can modify it. We use alter view. When we alter a view, we must completely specify the definition of the view. Here are the lab questions. Work on the questions and submit your answers to the class website. Don't forget about the useful resources. We can learn a lot more about what we just went over. on these websites. This is the end of our discussion.